Welcome to the Scale Smart podcast. I'm your host, Jacob, the CEO and founder of NetScale Growth. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Doug Porter, the co-founder of Radian Hub. Doug, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Doug, kick us off. Who's Doug and what do Radian Hub do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I am the co-founder and CTO of Radian Hub. I am a developer by trade and a consultant by nature. So we started Radian Hub about 5 years ago to be a premier Salesforce focused consulting organization. So we are a Ridge level partner with Salesforce. We focus a majority of our business in the nonprofit space. We want to make sure that we're doing meaningful work and giving back to the community that surrounds us. And so we have a heavy focus in the nonprofit space. We also do just about anything you could imagine in the Salesforce world, including some of the managed package business with a heavy emphasis in organizations that also fit that sort of nonprofit or governmental role as well.
And with your experience within Salesforce, what inspired you to co-found Radian Hub? And how has your journeys shaped the company's mission?
That is a phenomenal question. So my business partner Russ Badgett and I started the company after both having been in the ecosystem for about 10 years apiece. And he'd helped co-found or helped start practices within the Salesforce ecosystem before. And I had been working in organizations where we were very large organizations and working on very large multi-million dollar multinational level enterprise projects, and we were cogs in a machine, and we knew how to do the right things in the Salesforce ecosystem, but we didn't feel like we were moving the needle anywhere. So we wanted to make sure that we were putting our best efforts into organizations that were going to see the benefits of our efforts more immediately.
And with your experience, you mentioned you're a developer, right? So how are you finding managing the tasks, obviously being the co-founder within the business and obviously the CTO? How do you make sure you stay effective and efficient whilst being the co-founder and also the CTO of the business?
Yeah, that's been a major challenge of mine. When Russ and I started this, we used the figurative basement analogy. We started it figuratively in our basements, and it was just he and I. And I was the developer, I was the architect, I was the quality assurance resource, I was the technical trainer, right? I was all of those resources. As I have grown out of those roles, I've had to find a really strong set of leaders within my organization to help support that next layer, right? To give my development team the best possible leadership and my architecture team to give the best possible leadership and my quality assurance team for that leadership role, right? And so now I'm overseeing my leaders and not necessarily overseeing the individual developers, but stepping away from being someone who's constantly in code or constantly interacting with the clients on a day-to-day basis has really, really been challenging.
How have you made sure you've been recruiting the right people to fulfill them roles which you've wanted to fulfill?
Another amazing question. So we have been incredibly selective with our hiring process. As you're aware, I'm sure not all developers are created equal. And so, especially in the consulting world where you have to be able to be a heads down developer and go write excellent code, but also explain what you just wrote to a client in a way that they understand it and can agree that that's what we've decided we need to build, the that limits the pool of resources that we can bring in pretty substantially. And so we do have a process. We work with recruiting firms, and we've also hired organically, but we have a process in place for hiring basically a 90-day probationary period as a 1099 employee. And during that evaluation period, we're confirming that one, they're a good fit for us, and two, we're a good fit for them. And assuming all goes well, we bring them on as a full-time W-2 hire. But we've had very, very, very low attrition within our organization after that 90-day period. But it's difficult to find the right people for the role immediately. And so that 90 days kind of gives us a gauge for whether the employee, like I said, is a good fit or not.
Yeah, makes sense. And aside from obviously being able to juggle all these different tasks, being the co-founder and the CTO, what would you say, Doug, are some of the other challenges you've had to overcome when scaling the business?
Refinement is a constant game in our organization. We're always refining processes because what worked when it was three or four of us doesn't necessarily work when we're 20, and it definitely won't work when we're 50. So, process refinement's a constant challenge of ours, making sure that we have the right tools in place to support the right people. And then again, going back to what I said earlier, with me not being in the middle of everything all the time, it presents itself as a bit of a barrier to make sure that my team is saying the same things that I would have said, the same way that I would have said them, and ensuring that constant and consistent message within the organization for our clients without me necessarily needing to be in a meeting or in a conversation with the client on a day-to-day basis.
And as a specialist in complex cloud-based data integration, what would you say are some of the common challenges that you see organizations face when it comes to digital transformation, and how do you guys at Radian Hub address them challenges?
Yeah, so we see, especially within the markets that we support, point solutions for everything. So there's a solution for your CRM, and there's a solution for your ecom, and there's a solution for, you can kind of go down the list. And all of those different products, when you start aggregating all of those products together, looks like a lot of technical debt and a massive amount of products for an IT staff, which is typically pretty lean to support, right? And so if we can come into an organization as your business consultant first and say, here's what we can do to support reducing that technical stack, then we can help enable and provide value or return on investment for why you would purchase Salesforce. And that obviously is a great factor, but we have to also make sure that when we say we can do it, we actually execute on it. So there's always a challenge there. The other piece that I'll call out is the constant innovation around artificial intelligence, around data warehousing, right? Those sorts of things all play a major factor in decision making for these clients. So if we can provide a product that is front and center on both of those interfaces or both of those buzzwords, so to speak, that helps the client kind of again see that ROI or that return.
And I think you mentioned the word which gets mentioned every single podcast, and
Of
that's
course.
AI, artificial intelligence. And I think the tech industry and the software industry is constantly evolving. People have to keep adapting, and some people almost see it as a complete shift in focus, otherwise, they feel like they'll get left behind. So, what would you say, Doug, you guys are doing at Radian Hub to make sure you don't get left behind, to make sure you're constantly adapting to all these emerging technologies, and to make sure that you're constantly improving on what you do?
Yeah. Salesforce kind of helps us with that in some ways. There's three releases annually within the Salesforce product suite. And because there are three releases annually, we have to stay on top of them constantly. And so there are certifications that you can attain within the Salesforce ecosystem, everything from basic, cloud consultant all the way through AI certifications and data cloud architecture and all of the things that you might see within the Salesforce ecosystem. There are a myriad of different Salesforce certifications. We have to maintain those certifications, and we have to continue to read up on the release notes and make sure that we're at the spear or at the tip of the spear there. When we start looking outside of the Salesforce ecosystem, it's super important that my team knows about all of the other things that are out there so that we can, one, make recommendations for why maybe Salesforce is or isn't the right solution, but two, also understand when we can touch other components, things like ChatGPT, for example, or right other AI components out there that might be accessible to us to help expedite a workflow for a client or even expedite a workflow internally.
Mm. And where do you see the industry going? Obviously, I know there's constantly things coming out, new AI tools, new this. I think ChatGPT, the past couple of days, have released a new image function, which I think will totally wipe Canva out. I mean, I've been testing it and it's amazing. Where do you see it stopping? What do you think? Where else do you think companies can look at it and be like, there's going to be no need for this, that, and the other because it can all be automated.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Obviously, we've all seen the Terminator movie, so we hope that's not where this lands. The I think when AI came out initially, the idea was that it would be able to do these super complex mathematical operations that nobody else was going to be able to do in a short period of time. While it's absolutely certainly capable of doing that, what we didn't anticipate was the ability to create an artistic masterpiece or to write a full response to an RFP, for example, right? Where it can lean on knowledge from multiple sources to be able to essentially replace a lot of the lower and middle tier employment potentially in the future. I'm even seeing things like replacing simple administrative tasks within the Salesforce ecosystem that you would otherwise have like a junior resource working on. It can now tackle things like creating fields and layouts and creating simple flow. That is not something that we had initially anticipated seeing. Where does it end? I don't know. Ideally, I think what it's going to do is shift from the admin building the fields and building the layouts. The admin is now sending information to AI for it to go do that, right? Giving instructions in a verbal context or in a typed context. I hope that that's what we see. It's a tool to enable faster growth and faster development.
And I think it's going to be a point where it's going to be like, if you don't shift with what's happening, like if you don't adapt to AI, you're just going to get left behind and you're just not going to be able to scale as quick as other companies are. And it's quite funny because when you talk to AI about potentially someone who's not in like a software business or a tech business, like for example, if you talk to someone who's in like a construction business, who they're quite hands on. And it's quite funny because I was showing the capabilities, just like basic AI things. So, like for example, my partner's brother, he had a maths question, and they were like, "I can't answer it." I was like, "Give me 1 second." Took a picture of it. It gave me the answer in 5 seconds. They were like, "My God!" Just to even that point, and I think the people who are in like college and school, they have it so easy now because if I had that when we were back at school, I would have passed everything.
Yep, of course.
But I just think it's not only beneficial for like the day to day human. Like I use ChatGPT for everything. Like even like things on the oven. Like if I don't know how to cook something, I'll take a picture of the oven and say what setting do I need to have it on for this certain food, and it would give me it. Like I would never know to do that. I just think the difference between that and an actual human is just crazy. You get an answer in 5 seconds. So on going to like trends now, Doug, within the industry, Salesforce, software, tech, right? What winds are blowing which ways? Where do you see it shifting? Obviously, I know AI being a massive one, but let's take AI out of the equation now. Like, what do you see happening?
Data consolidation is a major effort that we see a lot. If you think about a major organization, they probably have multiple servers
Mm-hmm.
that are in some cases decades old at this point, right? And the data is either not exposed to the other servers or they have duplicative data within multiple servers. And we have a lack of ability for an individual user within that organization to get a full, robust 360 view of a client, for example. I have one specific client I'm thinking of that they've acquired multiple organizations over time, and because they've acquired those organizations over time, they have target accounts where they're very strategic, and those strategic accounts bring in a large portion of their revenue, but they have data compiled from multiple different legacy systems that they've done interactions with when the organizations were independent. So now that they're all one, they need to be able to see ABC company has done work within these five verticals, and here are the data elements around each of the sales over the past 5 years. How can that help drive the next sale? So by consolidating that data down and presenting it in one bite-sized view and maybe compiling that against AI for suggestive purposes, Now we can say, all right, sales guy, go sell this because we believe this is the best solution for you to go sell next. Right. And then that becomes that feedback loop where, yes, it was sold and here's the next thing, or no, it wasn't sold and here's why. Right. So there's lots of opportunity around data consolidation. And again, that goes back to that, multiple, the large tech stack, the outdated tech stack in a lot of cases. So we see a lot of that across the industry.
And looking into the future now, Doug, what are some of the goals and aspirations in terms of potentially growing the company, expanding? Do you have for the next 12 months with Radian Hub?
Yeah, so we do have goals for the next 24 months, pretty well
Amazing.
stacked out. We want to grow. We're currently 22 heads as an organization, all US based. We want to grow to between 30 and 32 by the end of this fiscal, and then by the end of next year, we hope to be between 42 and 50. I know that's kind of a broad range, but that's kind of the goal. We want to get to a point where we have enough generated revenue that there may be an opportunity for exit when the time comes, or there's always an opportunity to continue to grow. We believe that's a scalable, sustainable growth pattern that we can continue to see in.
Amazing. And if people wanted to reach out, Doug, and find out a little bit more about Radian Hub, where's the best place for them to do that?
They can reach out to either myself at my email address is doug.porter@radianhub.com, or they can just go to radianhub.com and book an appointment with one of us.
And thank you so much for coming on, Doug. You've definitely shared some valuable insights, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your time.
Of course, anytime.
Thanks again, Doug.
Thank you.